Hey, it's Dr. Conover from Organic Medicine Now, and I wanted to continue my series about hormonal overload by talking about estrogen overload. And estrogen dominance is really becoming a problem as we are exposed to more and more environmental estrogens. And I wanted to tell you about these environmental estrogens because it's somewhat confusing. We don't necessarily have more estrogen in the environment, but our body interprets these different chemicals as estrogen. We call them xenohormones, meaning they're foreign to us, but they act like a hormone. Okay? And this includes pesticides, this includes heavy metals, this includes plastics, solvents. And so basically, these are not estrogen themselves, but our body sees them as estrogen. And they are what we call a xenohormone, a foreign hormone. And what they do is they run havoc in our body. And again, remember, this is a new phenomenon. Only within the last 50 to 100 years have we had these issues. This is all new, all brand new, right? And so we this is why eating organic matters, because then you're not having the pesticides on your food. This is why, using as natural cleaners as you can to avoid solvents. This is why limiting your use of plastic water bottles and making sure you use BPA free. We know that estrogen, and I'll get to in a minute how estrogen is metabolized, but all of these environmental chemicals contribute to hormonal disruption and hormonal overload. And that, in a second you'll see, is a huge problem. Okay, so let's talk about why it matters if we're getting all of these environmental estrogens resulting in estrogen overload. It matters because all of that estrogen, again, being interpreted by our bodies as estrogen, from these xenohormones, these pesticides, these plastics, these heavy metals, result in many common symptoms. The biggest is probably weight gain that we see. A great reason for people to gain weight or have trouble losing weight is too much estrogen. Two, for women, will have menstrual problems such as heavy menstrual bleeding, endometriosis, fibroids. We see an increased risk of breast cancer for women, and for men, an increased risk of prostate cancer. So there's lots and lots of bad things that can happen if you're getting too much estrogen. And so quickly, I just want to show you estrogen is metabolized by our liver. There's at least 6 different estrogens that we can measure. Estradiol is the most potent of these, and detoxification happens in our liver, so all of these estrogens are coming in from the environment. This is supposed to be a drawing of our liver. Hang with me. Estradiol can be broken down into the 2 size or the 16 size. Our bodies like the 2. This is good. This works well. We don't have issues with this. The 16 size estrogen, that's not good. That means it's a poorly metabolized estrogen, and that is what leads to these risk of all of these things. So we really, really want to do a good job in metabolizing estrogen. Now, if we're getting all of that pesticides and plastics and heavy metals in, it's making it so much harder for our liver. Our liver has to work that much harder to break down estrogen into usable parts, and chances are, and what we've seen from the research, we end up making more of the 16 size, which causes all these problems. So if you just bear with me, I'm going to go into what you can do now to help reduce your burden of estrogen overload. So now you have a better understanding of where all these environmental estrogens come from and why they play such a burden on our livers and cause so many common symptoms for both men and women. So let me now give you some tips that you can employ so that you can, more effectively and efficiently handle all of these environmental estrogens. I've broken this down into 2 categories: avoid and focus, things you can avoid and things you can focus on. So number 1, let's start with avoid. The most obvious is pesticides. So certainly you don't want to be using chemicals on your lawn. That should be a no-brainer at this point. But next, you want to eat as much organic food as you can, because then you can feel confident it's not being sprayed with the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, which then your liver has to turn around and detoxify further. Number 2, you want to avoid unfiltered water. This unfiltered water is a great source for heavy metals and other chemicals, and again, we want to avoid that. And number 3, I haven't touched upon this yet, but soy is deemed this healthy, protein, when in fact it's very estrogenic, and in an environment where we're getting bombarded already with estrogens, adding soy just fuels that fire. It's also bad for your thyroid, so I say avoid soy. It's not a healthy protein overall. Here's things you can focus on. Number 1 would be green tea. Drinking green tea seems to really help your liver detoxify the estrogen. So drink a lot of green tea. As long as you can handle the caffeine. Green tea does have some caffeine, but green tea is a great way to help your liver detoxify all these estrogens. Number 2 would be cruciferous vegetables, consuming more of those. That's things such as broccoli, cauliflower, artichoke. These vegetables have been shown to help you make more of the 2 size estrogen and not the 16 size. So that literally helps you metabolize that estrogen better, so it's a healthier and safer estrogen. And number 3 would be soluble fiber. Things such as apple pectin, I spelled this wrong, soluble fiber, pectins from citrus or apple, guar gum, these different soluble fibers that you can get from vegetables and fruits. Primarily in your diet, really help to soak up that estrogen to avoid it going back in the liver and constantly forcing your liver to detoxify. Aim for at least 20 to 30 grams a day of soluble fiber. So those are some quick tips, I'm sure there's many more, of things you can avoid and things you can focus on to improve your chances of handling all of these estrogens in our environment, to reduce the symptoms, to reduce extra weight gain, to lower your chances of both breast cancer, prostate cancer, and probably other cancers, to help improve menstrual problems such as PMS, endometriosis, fibroids, heavy menstrual bleeding. The list goes on in terms of what estrogen can do. We're being bombarded now because of all these chemicals. I hope this was helpful. Please share this video with your friends and family, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.